is up? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. Back here with some more Resident Evil content for you. And today I'm going to be sharing my top 5 favorite Resident Evil characters of all time. Now Resident Evil has a huge cast of characters, so it's be no surprise that there should be a lot of different combinations of people and who they would like and who would be in their top 5. So don't be a stranger. Let me know down below who your top 5 favorite Resident Evil characters are, where they would rank, and why they made the list in the first place. I'm going to give you more insight on them. But well, alas, this is my opinion, so don't get too mad if one of yours didn't make the list, because we're all different at the end of the day. But also, I'll give a little fun tidbit at the end of each character to let you know how I see them going towards the future of the franchise. Without further ado, let's get right into my first one at number 5. And that is with Wesker. Now, I'll be the first one to admit, my list hasn't changed in 15 years. But the one that nearly changed would actually be the number 5 spot, Wesker, but he just did hold on to it. And the irony is, it probably was more me that almost caused this change more than anything else, because if you check out an earlier video I made this year, I wasn't being too nice to Wesker, but not Wesker as a whole, just more his performance and how he was done, in my opinion, done dirty in Resident Evil 5. But that doesn't take away from the early days of Wesker. I always liked how he was cold and calculating, but operating behind the scenes, always seemingly like he was one step ahead of everybody else. Someone that no one really understood just how dangerous he was, and how he's kind of always there, watching you, and could intervene any time, but you just had that fear of you never knew when he was going to drop in and do something. But Wesker was always just that cool ultimate villain character. To this day, he still is Resident Evil's greatest villain character. He wasn't like the other villains who would just appear in one game. Something I've always said was a big problem with a lot of Resident Evil villains outside Wesker is they'd have that one and done mentality, similar to a lot of other characters, right? But the thing with Wesker here is that he was that overarching villain. You know, he appeared in the first one, and obviously most people thought he was dead within the game, but obviously it was part of his plan, and he would appear in other games to his ultimate culmination in Resident Evil 5, but you had many games to get a taste of him, and so it's no surprise this cool, calculating villain would make my list at the number 5, barely holding on to the spot. But here's a little tidbit about Wesker. Now, I've heard a lot of people say, well, should they bring him back? Should he come back from the dead after his untimely demise in Resident Evil 5? And my honest answer is no. What I would like to see them do one day is redo Resident Evil 5 and actually redo his whole character arc and how he ultimately does in his final boss fight, because I think this is a joke of a final boss fight to get rid of him permanently off the stage. But I do not want them to bring him back because it's just far too long, too little, too late. And I feel like you have some other ideas you could do, especially some plot point ideas you can do that have been hanging there for the longest time. But I'll let you guys figure that out on your own. But now we get to my next one at number 4, which is Claire Redfield. Now, Claire Redfield is a character who, honestly, I could probably call maybe the most human character of the entire franchise. I definitely think she's the most misunderstood character, and as I said before, there's a certain YouTuber on there, or a certain dragon, who's definitely made enough videos, and I say this now because, unfortunately, apparently he's found more ways to connections between Claire and a certain game. I'm not going to mention it too much, but he knows what I'm talking about. But nonetheless, Claire to me, I've always felt was still, of all the 4 or 5 major Resident Evil characters, still the perfect character to do a Resident Evil tale about, because she's not overpowered superhero-ish, but she's not definitely like I've never been here before in my life. She's kind of that perfect balance in the middle, someone that you could do and put in these situations, and you could ultimately believe they could go in these situations, but you won't have to have the whole, I guess, horror vibe taken away, because you're not having like people like Chris punching boulders and Leon doing, I don't know what the heck kind of combination you can do nowadays. But I think the thing that always resonated with me with Claire is now been basically created in 2 things. One, I could always buy Claire, I think, from a human side and mentality more than any other character. I mean, these things that she goes through, I can understand, are very compelling. As I said, she still is in deep trauma and hasn't gotten over the events of Code Veronica. A lot of people just brush it off as, oh, well, you know, she clearly didn't. She's not the same person from that point. But these are things I can buy and understand, and I wish one day they would actually delve deep and give a culmination of these things. But also, another reason why I'm just deeply interested in her is just how so many people just misunderstood and brush her off to the side. I think this comes from a point where it's like, Claire to me is the most disrespected character. I remember I made a video talking about how I believe she is the Rodney Dangerfield of the Resident Evil universe, because it's like the company Capcom disrespects her, and I believe the fans disrespect her. There's only a very few plethora of Claire fans that really understand Claire, really understand how she has not gotten over Steve's death, and how that moment forever shaped her, and it's been shaping her ever since that day. And whether they will forever leave that plot point undone, or they'll only give us, references and future things, whether they'll actually commit to having a satisfying culmination of that whole event and tale, who knows. But since I was mentioned earlier, I guess my tidbit for Claire is for the Bengal Dragon himself. Do you think they'll ever resolve Claire in a future game storyline with the whole Steve thing, the possibility of Wesker having his body, or Steve, or also just Claire's psyche in general? Do you think they'll ever resolve that whole storyline, plot point, or are they forever going to just leave this whole thing just with only minor references and other things like Revelations 2 and the CGI movies? Because ultimately, I think that's the saddest thing in this whole right. But who knows? Maybe one day, Bingle. Maybe one day. And with that sad story out of the way, we now move on to my next entry at number 3. Jill Valentine. Now, Jill would be number 1 on a lot of people's list. Because let's just be honest, Jill, I guess next side to Leon, would be Resident Evil's 2 most popular characters overall. I mean, Jill to me is the ideal heroine. She's cool, but also has her little soft sides as well. She's definitely iconic. I mean, I'll tell you a little story about Jill. Even though Resident Evil 4 was my first Resident Evil I ever truly played, I knew that name Jill Valentine years before I ever played Resident Evil. I mean, I heard the name Jill, maybe not as much, but it was up there with the names of like someone like a Lara Croft in terms of like a well-known video game character. Jill was somebody that a lot of people to this day have been screaming for years till she finally made a return in Death Island, that they want to come back. But to me, I just feel like Jill Valentine is just the ultimate definition of a heroine in this type of environment in Resident Evil. She's like that ultimate security blanket. It's a reason why Chris calls her his partner, because having that security blanket with you is a great sense of relief in so many areas, because it's so reliable and dependable in so many ways. I ultimately think Jill is also one of the more versatile characters in terms of the type of missions she goes on. Not to say the other characters don't go on a lot of different types of missions, but I just feel like Jill is a little bit more versatile. I mean, she's been in all types of situations. She has all type of experiences and things that I would like to be one day be developed on and talked more about in future installments. But Jill ultimately did go through a series where Capcom wasn't using her, and I definitely was very adamant about that. So I was happy to see her return in Death Island. I mean, it was like about a 14-year hiatus from an actual new thing. No remakes don't count. But that gets me to my next point and my next tidbit is why I'm happy to see Jill return. It's still not enough for me. I like to see Jill return in a mainline game. But when they return her into a mainline game, I don't want them to brush off the whole events she went through in Resident Evil 5. Being under Wesker's control, nearly killing her friends, and as well as the rehab, the years it took to rehab and get back in the field. I want them to actually fully delve upon that and really showcase what she went through, because I ultimately believe that a lot of people to this day really don't fathom or understand it. And to be fair, that is on Capcom's fault themselves for not doing it, because I'm tired of them doing these half-ass attempts, which like for instance, that scene in the firing range in Death Island, I like that scene, but the problem is they don't do anything after that. It's like we just did the one scene and that's it. No, you got to continue it on. You just don't play good for one quarter. You got to play good for all the quarters if you're going to have a higher chance of victory. So ultimately, I want them to show and delve into Claire's psyche and what she endured and went through for the events of Resident Evil 5 until she eventually came back into the franchise. But now we get to number 2. And number 2 is a no-brainer for me, and that is Leon. Now, Leon was the first ever Resident Evil character I ever played as Resident Evil 4 was my first ever Resident Evil I ever played. So, yeah, you could say he was there first, so I'm going to have an attachment to that. But ultimately, being in a game that ultimately is my favorite game does help out a lot as well. But what is about Leon that I've always liked? Well, I guess you can say that whole thing about him is that unlike the other characters, I always did like his introduction, his intro, like how he came into the franchise. Being just someone who had the worst first day of work you could ever have, something I think we all can relate to in a way, but maybe not to extreme as Leon's standards of worst first day of work ever. But he comes in there just trying to do the right thing, help out, but because of the events of Resident Evil 2, he's forever scarred by that. And I guess that's something he still hasn't gotten over is the events of Raccoon City because he brings it up all the time. But nonetheless, Leon eventually goes from that point of being that rookie cop to being this ultra extremely cool, badass character that can basically involve himself in just about any situation with all kinds of flips and kicks. And I remember doing the suplex on the staircase, busting open one of Ganado's heads, and I'm just thinking, damn, like, what is this? This is ridiculous. We're doing wrestling moves in a Resident Evil game and stuff like that, but he forever imprinted himself in my mind as just an iconic, just cool, badass character that ultimately had the whole feeling of he's the guy every man wants to be, and he's the man every woman wants to be with. I mean, he's Leon S. Kennedy. He's that cool character with all the corny one-liners on top of it. He can have his serious moments too, but he had a plethora of things that you could relate to and involve yourself with Leon. But my interesting tidbit with Leon is what they're going to do with him in the future. And this is an interesting thing because I'll be honest with you, Leon's a little bit different from the other Resident Evil characters because while it was nice to see him team up with a lot of them for the first time in Death Island all together at the same time, especially Jill, he's always been someone that kind of operates on his own. Not that he just works by himself, but it's not like he's in the, well, I guess now he wouldn't be in the BSA since they've gone rogue, but he's kind of been in his own government facility. He does his own thing. It's not like he's working alongside, Chris, Jill, or Claire, unless the circumstances require it, but he's kind of always been on his own. And so my thing is this. I don't see Leon as the type of guy that want to do this till he's 80 years old. I feel like he's somebody that ultimately would want to get out of it. And does that mean that his ending, his culmination is coming up soon? And if they are going to do that, I ultimately want it to be one more satisfying tale that basically throws everything at him. But does he survive and live at the end of his tale? Is it a sad, traumatic ending? Or does he walk off, smiles in a sunset? Maybe with some other individual. Well, I'll let you guys decide in the end. But ultimately, give me one more satisfying Leon tale and I'll be good. But now we get to number one. And this number one needs no introduction because not only are they my favorite Resident Evil character of all time, they are without a doubt the greatest Resident Evil character of all time. And they're just the best. I mean, who else would I pick other than this person?
Mother of balls! My life is awesome! Just like Kate, you two men! Fun shit! Go on without me! We'll regroup later! You heard him, kid! Go! You stay the hell alive, Fisher!
Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me?
Oh no, I'm not kidding you. And you guys thought it was a joke through my thumbnail. Nope. It's Pedro from Revelations 2. Why, you might be asking? Well, I guess I kind of told a little lie earlier. I said Claire was the most human character, but honestly, if I really think about it, I got to give it to Pedro. He's the most human character. He's the most relatable character. He's the most believable character. I mean, Pedro is that person who's probably just a normal guy trying to do his job, work, make a living, take care of his family, put food on the table, and he's put in such a messed up situation. But even being put in a messed up situation that's so just horrifying for any human experience, he still has a need to crack and make jokes to make the whole tension break. Like, take a listen to this good joke.
God, you owe me a pair of underpants.
Come on in.
Oh, Pedro, you're so damn likable. Just so damn likable. And that's the thing about Pedro. He's so scared and way out of his depth, has not a prayer's chance of probably surviving and hoping. but ultimately he's still trying to do his best with what he's got. He's no superhero. He doesn't have abilities, doesn't have too much experience dealing with this stuff in terms of active on the field, but he's someone who's still trying to do his best, still trying to help people. He's just that believable character. I mean, we could all be that Pedro. I mean, we'd be all terrified out of our minds. You know, we don't have that plot armor like other characters do, or the ability to flip up everything and beat up everything, but Pedro still tries his best, even despite the odds. And as I said before, his tale is so tragic but relatable. And when it comes to him eventually starting to lose his mind and get scared and terrified, we can understand that because we be right there with Pedro. I mean, he's still trying to crack his little jokes, but he's still slowly losing it because he still wants to help out his teammates. And that's the ultimate relatability right there, the ultimate team member. And ultimately, I'll just say this right now, he has the most tragic end. Like, I know a lot of people want to say that characters like Piers or Ethan are tragic characters, maybe even a Steve, but no, it's Pedro. Pedro is the ultimate tragic character because after him struggling to keep the fear down, eventually he is only human and he succumbs to it. But not only does he succumb to it, you ultimately have to be the one to put him down. The only question is whether you do it now or a little bit later. And that's the ultimate sadness. You saw this guy just being a normal person, guy laughing, cracking jokes, doing everything for his team members, and just being that normal guy who didn't ask for any of this, just trying to take care of his family, and ultimately turn into this hideous abomination, and you're the one that ultimately has to put this nice guy down. And that's the ultimate sadness there, and that's why Pedro is Resident Evil. He's my favorite character, and I think he should be everyone's favorite character. He is the ultimate human being in Resident Evil, and there's just no debate about that. But at the end of the day, that is my opinion. I want to hear your guys' opinion. What is your favorite Resident Evil character? And is Pedro on your list? Because honestly, it should be. Let me know down in the comment section down below. But thank you very much for watching. Hope you guys did enjoy this video. And hope to see you guys back next time. Thanks, and I'll see you all later. Peace. Alright, I let it go on far too long. Probably is enough. So hopefully if you obviously figured out that was a joke. Don't ask me why, but I've always had some weird thing with Pedro. I don't know why, but anyway, here is my honest to God favorite Resident Evil character of all time, who needs no introduction. Number 1, Ada Wong.
Okay.
So yeah, if you've been a member of this channel for a little while, you know I've talked many times and I've mentioned many times that Ada Wong is my all-time favorite Resident Evil character. I've even done videos talking about it. But for someone who is maybe newer, maybe you don't really understand it to this day, why is Ada Wong my favorite Resident Evil character? Well, I've always been a big fan of the characters that kind of blend the lines, that kind of operate on both sides of the spectrum. Whether they're never black and white. There's a lot of gray involved in them, and they got to do a lot of things. Play the sides, go all over the place. They got to do what they got to do to survive and get the job done. Not to mention, I've always been a big fan of the kind of spy espionage type characters. So if you are fans of other characters like Solid or Naked Snake, James Bond, or Black Widow, then maybe you can understand why I like Ada Wong so much. And the thing that's cool about Ada Wong, well, let's be honest, I think she is the coolest Resident Evil character, is that I always like it how she could just completely evolve herself in any situation just out of the blue, and it completely throws a huge monkey wrench or X factor right into the whole story of whatever is going on. And you always got to account for that, and you got to respect it because you never know how it's going to, take form and materialize over time. And you got to be leery of it too, because the thing about Ada is you never really quite know 100% shadow of doubt what she's going to do. I know some people are going to be like, yeah, well, she's always going to help Leon. Yeah, I guess so. I guess he got me there. But Ada's always going to be that character that they just seemingly pop up out of nowhere as if they're like an RNG spawn from a JRPG turn-based battle system game. And, they'll come in when they want to come in. And a lot of times you never know when it's going to be, but it's going to come in. And usually it's going to come in and look cool and epic. And seeing how she processes information with other characters, watches them from the shadows, how she seems to be so close. And you sometimes don't realize just how close they are. They're basically in bed with you and you didn't even realize it. But I ultimately want to leave you guys with this, and this is my last tidbit of information for this character regarding the future. So Ada has been around for a little over a quarter century now, but we still, for someone who's been around that long, we still don't know much about her. I mean, we have theories about her tales of the past, how she became to be the woman she is today, but that's it. I want one day for them to make a full-line main Resident Evil game that stars Ada Wong. And I want them to really delve into her past, how she became to be what she is, how she goes about her life, does her missions, how she interacts with certain individuals, who she talks to, and just what she does in her spare time, and really delve into the character of Ada Wong and finally unveil the whole mystery, because it's been far too long, Capcom. I mean, I know you don't want to do something different half the time, but why don't we delve into it? But also, here's the big one, and I know some people might not like what I'm about to say here, but or maybe they'll understand it. If you are going to do a mainline Ada game, you have to do one thing, for me personally, and that is this. Please do not include Leon in it. Please. I don't want Leon, other than maybe a fun mention at the very end, but do not include Leon S. Kennedy in the game. I want a Ada-starred game with no Leon in it. And maybe wink wink, I'll go further in detail with a video later, maybe around the end of this year if you catch my drift. But that ultimately is my top 5 favorite characters. Hopefully you guys did enjoy that. And hopefully you guys didn't get fooled by my little joke at the fake number 1. But, you know, you got to have a little fun and laugh at some things sometimes. But that is my top 5. I always say that's my opinion. I want to hear your guys' top 5. And I want to hear who your guys' favorite characters are, who would make the top 5, and where they would rank and why they would rank they are. I mean, and hey, don't be a stranger. Let me know. You can type as long as you want. I'll read it and see what you guys have to say, because I like hearing differences. I like to hear different people's with different perspectives. So ultimately, as I said, let me know down below in the comment section. But that is going to be it. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video, and hopefully I can see you guys back in the next one. Thanks, and I'll see you all later. Peace.